She spilled wine on the wrong man at a party. He slapped her in front of everyone and walked away like she was nothing. What he didn't know, the maid he humiliated was married to the one man in the city no one dares to cross. The crystal chandeliers of the Skyfall Grand Hotel cast diamonds of light across the marble floor, but Lena Martinez wasn't looking up. She never did at these events. Eyes down, tray steady, invisible, that was the rule for people like her. "Excuse me, ma'am," she whispered, sliding past a woman dripping in emeralds. The Autumn Charity Gala was the kind of party where a single bottle of champagne cost more than Lena's monthly rent. She'd worked dozens of these events over the past 3 years, always careful, always quiet. Her husband hated when she took these jobs, but Lena insisted. She needed her own money, her own purpose. Besides, what could go wrong at a fancy party? Everything, apparently. Lena was navigating through a cluster of guests near the bar when someone stepped backward without looking. The physics were simple and devastating. Her tray tilted, the wine glass slid, and deep red liquid arced through the air like a crimson accusation. It landed perfectly on Adrian Voss's white Armani suit. Time stopped. The surrounding chatter died. Lena watched in horror as the wine soaked into the fabric, spreading like blood across his chest. "You stupid." Adrian's face turned purple. At 43, he was used to being the most important person in any room. Forbes had just ranked him among the top 50 wealthiest Americans. His tech company had revolutionized data security. And now, this nobody in a cheap uniform had ruined his $12,000 suit. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry." Lena grabbed napkins from her tray, her hands shaking. "Please let me." "Don't touch me." Adrian's voice cracked like a whip. The entire ballroom was watching now. Phones were definitely recording. Lena felt her face burning as she tried to dab at the stain. Her manager would fire her for this. She needed this job. The bookstore where she worked mornings barely paid anything, and Dante had been insisting she didn't need to work at all, but she couldn't just sit at home. "I said, don't touch me." Adrian shoved her hands away. Lena stumbled backward. "Sir, please, I can get club soda. I can fix." "Fix it? This suit cost more than you make in a year." Adrian's eyes were cold, calculating her worth and finding it negligible. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "I know, Mr. Voss, I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't cut it. You people are all the same. Careless. Worthless." He grabbed her wrist, his fingers digging in hard enough to hurt. "What's your name? I'm going to make sure you never work in this city again." Lena's heart hammered. "Please, sir. It was an accident." Someone stepped back and the slap came out of nowhere. Adrian's palm connected with her cheek, with a crack that echoed through the silent ballroom. Lena's head snapped to the side. The pain was sharp, but the humiliation was worse. 300 people watched her stumble, watched tears spring to her eyes, watched her become nothing. "That's for ruining my evening," Adrian said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Now get out of my sight." Lena pressed her hand to her burning cheek. She wanted to say something, to defend herself, but her voice had abandoned her. Through the blur of tears, she saw her manager rushing over, apologizing profusely to Adrian. Saw the guests whispering behind their hands. Saw phones pointed at her like weapons. She ran. The hotel corridors blurred past as she fled toward the service exit. Behind her, she heard her manager calling her name, but she couldn't stop. She burst through the back door into the alley, the cool October air hitting her face like a splash of water. Lena leaned against the brick wall, trying to catch her breath. Her cheek throbbed. Her wrist ached where he'd grabbed her. But worse than any physical pain was the memory of how small he'd made her feel. How powerless. She fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. She should call her friend Maria. She should call the police. Though what would they do? Rich men didn't face consequences for slapping maids. She should. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Lena almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe accept. "Hello. Mrs. Rinaldi." The voice was rough, unfamiliar. "We have a situation." Lena's blood went cold. Nobody called her that. Ever. She'd gone back to using Martinez for work, for everything public. Rinaldi was a name that carried weight she didn't want to feel. "Who is this?"
Carlo, M.
"I'm one of your husband's associates. He sent me to make sure you're safe." "I don't understand. How did you?" "The video went live 3 minutes ago, ma'am. It's already got 500,000 views." Lena's legs gave out. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold pavement. "What video?" "Of what happened inside. Someone posted it to Twitter." Mr. Rinaldi saw it. "Oh God. Oh no. Is he?" Lena couldn't finish the question. "He's asking if you're hurt, ma'am." Before Lena could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming call.
Dante.
Her husband. The man she'd married 4 years ago in a small ceremony that only 3 people attended. The man who'd retired from his family's business 2 years ago because she'd asked him to, because she couldn't live with what that business was. The man who had just seen a video of his wife being slapped in front of hundreds of people. Lena answered. "Dante. Are you safe?" His voice was controlled, too controlled. She knew that tone. It was the one he used when he was fighting every instinct he had.
"I'm okay."
"I'm outside." "It's fine, it was just." "I saw the video, baby. I need you to listen carefully. Carlo is nearby. He's going to drive you home. Don't talk to anyone. Don't go back inside. Just come home. Dante, please. We'll talk when you get here." A pause. "I love you. You know that, right?" "I know," Lena's voice cracked. "Please don't do anything. It was an accident. I spilled wine on him. He overreacted, but it's done. Let it be done." Silence stretched between them. When Dante finally spoke, his voice was different. Colder. Harder. The voice of the man he used to be. "Baby, when someone hurts you, it's never done." The line went dead. In the distance, Lena heard sirens. Or maybe it was just the wind. She looked up at the glittering windows of the Skyfall Grand Hotel, where Adrian Voss was probably already back to enjoying his party, having forgotten the maid he'd humiliated. But across the city, in a penthouse above an old bookstore, Dante Rinaldi was making calls. And when Dante made calls, the whole city listened. The war had begun, and Adrian Voss had no idea he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. Lena sat on the curb behind the Skyfall Grand Hotel, her uniform still pristine except for a small wine stain on her sleeve. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd stayed clean while destroying a billionaire's suit and possibly her husband's 2-year retirement. The service entrance door opened and closed as staff hurried in and out, their whispers following her like ghosts. "Did you see what he did?" She had it coming, being so careless. "Nobody deserves that. I don't care how expensive his suit was." Lena pulled her knees to her chest. A black town car idled at the end of the alley. Carlo, waiting as instructed. She should go. She should get in that car and disappear before this got worse. But her legs felt like concrete. 2 security guards emerged from the service entrance, cigarettes already lit. They hadn't noticed her in the shadows. "Saw at least 6 SUVs pull up to the front," the younger one said, his voice tight with nervousness. "Blacked out windows. Nobody's getting out. They're just sitting there." "Could be anyone," the older guard replied, but he didn't sound convinced. "Lots of important people here tonight." "Yeah, but these aren't limo services, Mike. These are the kind of vehicles that mean business." "Bad business." He took a long drag. "And the timing, right after that thing with the maid." Mike glanced around, lowering his voice. "Don't be paranoid." "What? You think someone's going to start something over a slap?" "These rich people probably didn't even notice." The whole room noticed. And it's all over social media now. My girlfriend sent me the link. It's got over 1 million views already. Still doesn't mean. There are men in the lobby, Mike. Suits, earpieces, the whole deal. Hotel security doesn't know who they are. They just walked in and positioned themselves at every exit. When Barry tried to ask questions, they showed him some kind of ID, and he went white as a sheet. Lena's phone buzzed. A text from Carlo, Mrs. R, we need to leave.
Now.
Her hands trembled as she typed back. 5 minutes. The guards were still talking. You remember 2 years ago? When the Corsetti family tried to move in on the waterfront. That was different. That was… Mike stopped mid-sentence. Wait, you're not saying… I'm just saying there's a reason things went quiet after that. Someone bigger told them to back off. Someone who doesn't like his city being carved up. That's just rumors. Urban legends. Urban legends don't make 6 SUVs appear out of nowhere. Lena's phone rang, making both guards jump and turn. She stood quickly, nearly tripping over her own feet. Sorry, she mumbled, hurrying toward the town car.
See?
She didn't look back to see if they recognized her. Carlo stepped out as she approached, a mountain of a man in his 50s, with kind eyes that didn't match his scarred knuckles. He opened the back door without a word. Lena slid inside, and the door closed with a solid thunk of armored plating. The interior smelled like leather and gun oil. Buckle up, Mrs. Rinaldi, Carlo said gently, starting the engine. As they pulled away from the hotel, Lena caught a glimpse of the front entrance. The guards were right. At least 6 black SUVs lined the circular drive, silent and menacing. Men in dark suits stood like statues near the entrance. Nobody was going in or out.
Carlo?
Her voice was small. What's happening? He met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Mr. Rinaldi is making sure you're safe. By surrounding the hotel with armed men.
Nobody's armed, ma'am.
Not visibly, anyway. They're just present. Sending a message. What message? Carlo was quiet for a moment, navigating through traffic with practiced ease. That some things have consequences. Lena's phone buzzed again. Not Dante this time. Maria, her friend from the bookstore. Then her mother. Then numbers she didn't recognize. Everyone had seen the video. Everyone wanted to know if she was okay. She ignored them all and called Dante. He answered on the first ring. Are you with Carlo?
Yes.
Dante, there are men at the hotel. SUVs. Security guards are talking about. She stopped, unsure how to say it. People are scared. Good. That's not good. Dante, you promised. You said you were done with all of this. I am done. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. But I will never be done protecting you. This isn't protection, this is the world understanding that you are not someone who can be touched without consequences. A pause. I saw the video, Lena. I saw him grab you. I saw the slap. I saw 300 people stand there and do nothing. Tears burned her eyes. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. The emotion in his voice cracked through his control. Do you know what it did to me? Watching that? Knowing I wasn't there? Ivy Fine. You're not fine. I can hear it in your voice. He took a breath. Come home. Please. Let me see you're okay. Then we'll talk about what happens next. Nothing can happen next, Lena said desperately. You've been out for 2 years. You have a legitimate business now. We have a life. A normal life. We had a normal life, Dante corrected softly. But he took that from us the moment he put his hands on you. And Lena, I need you to understand something. What? Adrian Voss just made an enemy of a ghost. And ghosts? We're very hard to fight. The line went dead. Lena looked out the window as they crossed into their neighborhood. In the distance, she could see their building, the old bookstore with the apartment above it, their sanctuary from Dante's former world. But that world was coming back. She could feel it in the air, in the tension of Carlo's shoulders, in the way the city itself seemed to be holding its breath. The slap had lasted a second. The consequences would last much longer. Dante Rinaldi stood in his study, watching the video for the 7th time. Each viewing made his hands curl tighter around his phone until his knuckles went white. The study was sparse, leather chairs, a single painting of the Mediterranean coast, shelves lined with books Lena had chosen. Nothing that hinted at what he used to be.
He designed it that way.
For 2 years, he'd been just Dante, owner of Rinaldi Imports, a man who sold olive oil and Italian wine to restaurants across the East Coast. But that man died the moment he watched Adrian Voss's hand connect with his wife's face. The door opened. Marco Salvetti entered, closing it softly behind him. At 62, Marco had been with the Rinaldi family for 4 decades. He taught Dante everything: how to read people, how to move money, how to make problems disappear. He'd also been the hardest to convince when Dante announced his retirement. "The men are in position," Marco said. "No movement from Voss yet. He's still at the party." "Of course he is." Dante's voice was hollow. "Why would he leave?" "He slapped a maid. Probably doesn't remember her face." Marco moved to the window, overlooking the city. "The video has 3 million views now. It's trending nationally. People are angry. People are always angry. It changes nothing." Dante finally looked away from his phone. "I need everything on Adrian Voss. Every business deal, every account, every skeleton in his closet. I want to know where his money lives and who protects it." Already being compiled, Marco pulled out a tablet, swiping through pages. Adrian Voss, 43. Founded Voss Security Systems 12 years ago. Current net worth estimated at $24 billion. His company handles data protection for half the Fortune 500. He's got contracts with 3 government agencies. Family: divorced, no children. Parents deceased. 1 sister in California. They haven't spoken in 6 years. Marco continued scrolling. He's clean on paper. Pays his taxes. Donates to charity. No criminal record. Nobody's that clean. I said on paper. Marco smiled thinly. Our accountant found some interesting patterns. Voss has been moving money through shell companies in the Caymans. Not illegal necessarily, but creative. There's also a sealed lawsuit from 4 years ago. Sexual harassment allegation from a former employee. He paid her $2 million to make it go away. Dante felt something cold settle in his chest. What else? 3 other employees filed complaints about hostile work environment. All settled quietly. His company has a reputation: brilliant technology, terrible culture. He's known for public outbursts. Marco looked up. Tonight wasn't out of character. He's done this before, just never on camera. So, he's a repeat offender who finally got caught. Seems that way. Dante walked to his desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a black ledger, the only thing he'd kept from his old life. It contained names, numbers, favors owed, and debts unpaid. He'd hoped never to open it again. "Dante," Marco said carefully, "are you sure about this? You walked away. You built something clean with Lena. Going back down this road." "I'm not going back," Dante interrupted. "I'm taking 1 step. Just 1. To make sure he understands. 1 step with you is a mile for anyone else." Marco closed the tablet. "The families are already calling. They heard you activated people. They want to know if you're back. Tell them no. They won't believe me. You put 6 cars outside the Skyfall Grand. You've got men at the docks, the airport, watching every major intersection. You froze movement in 3 districts just by making phone calls." Marco's voice was gentle but firm. "That's not a step. That's an earthquake." Dante's jaw tightened. "Then let them feel it. Let everyone feel it. I don't care about territory or business or any of the old games. But I need them to know that Lena is untouchable. She was always untouchable. You made sure of that when you married her." Clearly the message wasn't received. Dante pulled out his phone again, pulling up a contact he hadn't called in 2 years. Tommy Chun, the best information broker on the East Coast. "If I have to remind this city who I am, I will. But this ends with Voss understanding, not with him in the ground. And if he doesn't take the hint, then I'll speak louder." Marco was quiet for a long moment. "Lena won't like this. I know," the admission hurt. "But I can't be the man who does nothing. I tried that life, Marco. I tried being invisible. And look what happened. Some arrogant billionaire thinks he can put his hands on my wife because she's wearing an apron. So, what's the play?" Dante opened the ledger, running his finger down a list of names. "Start with his money. Call David Chen at Metropolitan Bank. He owes us from the Brooklyn dock situation. Have him flag Voss's accounts for suspicious activity. Nothing illegal, just inconvenient. That'll take an hour. Good. Then contact his major investors. Remind them that Voss might not be the stable business partner they thought. Plant seeds of doubt. Make them ask questions. And the customs delay on his shipment. How did you? Dante stopped, almost smiling. You're already 3 steps ahead. 4, actually. I've got someone ready to talk to the Transportation Safety Board about those government contracts. Purely routine audit. Of course, Marco's expression was neutral. Just because you retired doesn't mean I forgot how to work. Dante felt the old machinery clicking into place, the network of favors and fears that he'd spent 15 years building. It felt familiar, comfortable, and that terrified him. Keep it subtle, he said. I want him uncomfortable, not destroyed. Not yet. Understood. Marco headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth. I'm glad you're doing something. I watched that video too. Made me want to break things. After Marco left, Dante stood alone in his study. Through the floor, he could hear Lena moving around in their apartment. Soon she'd be home, and he'd have to look her in the eye and promise he wasn't becoming the man he used to be. But as he stared at Adrian Voss's face frozen on his phone screen, that arrogant smirk still in place, Dante knew the truth. Some men needed to be reminded that actions have consequences. And Dante Rinaldi was very good at teaching that lesson. Adrian Voss woke up to 17 missed calls. He squinted at his phone, head pounding from last night's champagne. The gala had been a triumph, until that clumsy maid ruined his suit.
He'd handled it, though.
Put her in her place. These service workers needed to understand there were consequences for incompetence. His phone buzzed again. Richard Moss, his CFO. At 6:47 a.m.
What?
Adrian answered, not bothering with pleasantries. We have a problem. Richard's voice was strained. Multiple problems, actually. Where are you?
Home.
What's going on? Get to the office.
Now.
Don't talk to anyone on the way. The line went dead. Adrian sat up, unease creeping through his hangover.
Richard didn't panic.
The man had been his CFO for 8 years, had navigated 3 recessions and 2 federal audits without breaking a sweat. Whatever this was, it was serious. 40 minutes later, Adrian strode into Voss Tower, coffee in hand. His assistant Jennifer practically lunged at him from her desk. Mr. Voss, thank God. Richard is in your office with the legal team. The phone hasn't stopped ringing. And she hesitated. Have you seen the news? What news? She turned her monitor toward him. The headline made his coffee taste like ash. Tech billionaire caught on camera assaulting worker at charity event. The video played on loop. Him grabbing the maid. Her terrified face. The slap echoing through the ballroom. From this angle, with the audio clear, he looked like a monster. 3 million views. 10,000 comments. All of them hostile. Sir, your PR team has been trying to reach you. Adrian didn't wait for the rest. He stormed into his office where Richard sat with 3 lawyers, all of them looking like they'd aged a decade overnight. Tell me, Adrian demanded. Richard stood, his normally composed face drawn tight. At 4 a.m., Metropolitan Bank flagged your primary business account for suspicious activity. All transactions frozen pending investigation. That's ridiculous. I've banked with them for 12 years. It gets worse. At 5:15, Customs detained your server shipment at Port Newark. They're claiming paperwork irregularities. That's $4 million in equipment sitting in a warehouse. Adrian felt his chest tighten. On what grounds? Routine inspection, they said. But the timing. Richard pulled up a spreadsheet on the conference screen. At 5:45, Grayson Capital withdrew their $50 million investment. No explanation, just a terse email from their CEO. Grayson. Adrian's voice rose. We had a signed contract, which they're invoking the morality clause on. One of the lawyers, Patricia something, spoke up, citing reputational damage that could affect their portfolio. Adrian's head spun. This is one video. One moment taken out of context. 3.2 million views and climbing, Jennifer called from the doorway. It's trending #1 on Twitter. Someone started a hashtag. She winced. I'd rather not say it. Say it.
Решетка есть.
The room went silent. Richard cleared his throat. 2 more investors pulled out in the last hour. Harrison Tech and Bluestone Ventures. That's another 70 million gone. Your stock dropped 8% at opening bell. Adrian sank into his chair. This couldn't be happening. Not from one stupid slap. Not from one nobody in an apron.
Fix it, he said.
Call the bank, call customs, call the investors. Threaten lawsuits. Offer whatever. We tried. Patricia's voice was flat. Metropolitan Bank won't take our calls. Customs says the investigation could take weeks. And the investors? She shook her head. They're spooked. Something has them running scared, and it's not just bad publicity. What does that mean? Richard and Patricia exchanged glances. Sir, Richard said carefully, these moves are too coordinated. The bank freeze, the customs delay, the investors pulling out simultaneously. This isn't organic backlash. Someone is orchestrating this. That's paranoid. At 6 a.m., your head of security resigned. Via email. Effective immediately, Richard's fingers tapped nervously on the table. Thomas Garcia has been with you for 6 years. He doesn't quit without notice unless something scared him badly. Adrian's mouth went dry. Did he say why? Just that he needed to pursue other opportunities. Adrian's computer chimed. New email. He clicked it open, and his blood turned to ice. The sender was anonymous. The subject line was empty. The message contained one sentence and an attachment. You touched what is mine. The attachment was a photo, him at the gala, his hand raised mid-slap, Lena's face caught in a moment of pure terror. What is it? Richard asked, noting Adrian's expression. Adrian closed the laptop too quickly. Nothing. Spam. But his hands were shaking. Jennifer appeared in the doorway again, her face pale. Sir, Mayor Hartwell's office just called. They're canceling the Smart City Partnership announcement. The press conference scheduled for Friday is off. On what grounds? They said they need to reassess their partnerships in light of recent events. That partnership was worth $200 million over 5 years. Adrian had spent 18 months negotiating it. Richard stood. Adrian, I need you to listen carefully. In the last 3 hours, you've lost access to your operating capital, had a major shipment detained, lost $120 million in investments, your security chief quit, and the mayor dropped you like radioactive waste. This isn't random. This is systematic. You think someone's targeting me? I think you made an enemy last night, Richard's voice dropped. A powerful one. These aren't moves a PR crisis makes. This is someone with reach. Someone who can make phone calls that matter. Adrian wanted to laugh. It was absurd. He'd slapped a maid. A nobody. Who could possibly care enough to? His phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. This is just the beginning. Ask yourself, who did you really hurt? Adrian stared at the message, his mind racing. The maid. What was her name? Linda? Lisa. She'd been terrified, desperate, apologizing over and over. She was nobody. But what if she wasn't? Find her, Adrian said suddenly. The woman from last night. The one eye, the maid. Find out everything about her. Sir, I don't think that's... Do it. Adrian's voice cracked across the room. I need to know who she is.
Who her family is. Who her friends are.
Someone is doing this because of her, and I need to know why. Patricia frowned. That could be considered stalking. It's called due diligence. Do it. After they filed out, Adrian sat alone in his office, watching his empire shake. His phone kept buzzing with more bad news. Another investor backing out, a vendor canceling a contract, a news outlet requesting comment. He pulled up the video again, studying the maid's face, really looking at her for the first time. She wasn't crying for show. That was real fear, real pain. And somewhere, someone loved her enough to burn Adrian's world down. The question was, who? And more importantly, how did he make it stop? Lena stood at the kitchen window of their penthouse apartment, watching the sunrise paint the city gold. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Adrian's hand coming toward her face, felt the sting, heard the silence of 300 people who did nothing. Behind her, the espresso machine hissed. Dante was making breakfast like this was a normal morning. Like he hadn't spent half the night on the phone speaking in the voice that made grown men afraid. "You should eat something," he said, setting a plate of eggs and toast on the counter. Lena didn't turn around. "I'm not hungry. You need to eat." "I need this to stop," she finally faced him. Dante looked tired, truly tired in a way she hadn't seen in 2 years. The man who'd retired to give her peace was gone, replaced by someone older, harder. "What did you do last night?" "I made some calls." "Dante." He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I spoke to some people. Asked them to look into Adrian Voss. Made sure certain parties understood that you're not to be bothered by press or lawyers or anyone else who might come looking. That's all." His silence was answer enough. Lena's phone sat on the counter, face down. She'd turned off notifications after the 100th message came through. Her mother had called 6 times. Maria had texted nonstop. Even her old college roommate had reached out, someone she hadn't spoken to in 3 years. Everyone had seen it. Everyone knew. "It has 4 million views now," she said quietly. "People are posting my name. Someone found my Facebook page, my Instagram. They're calling me brave. Calling me a symbol," she laughed bitterly. "I'm not brave. I ran away crying." "You survived." Dante moved closer, but didn't touch her, as if she might break. "You kept your dignity in a room full of people who abandoned theirs. I spilled wine on him, and he assaulted you." It was a slap, Dante. It lasted 1 second. It was assault. In front of witnesses. And he did it because he thought you were powerless. Dante's voice hardened. He thought wrong. Lena wrapped her arms around herself. Through the window, she could see their neighborhood waking up. The bookstore below, the cafe across the street, the park where they walked on Sunday mornings. Their sanctuary. Their escape from the world Dante had left behind.
2 years, she said.
"We had 2 years of normal. Of quiet. I worked at the bookstore, you ran the import business, we had dinner with friends who didn't carry guns. We were happy. We are happy." Where Lena turned to face him fully. Past tense. "Because you're back in it now, aren't you? Making calls, pulling strings, doing whatever it is you're doing to Adrian Voss." Dante's jaw tightened. "He put his hands on you. So, you're what? Destroying his life? His business? Is that the plan?" "I'm making sure he understands. That I'm married to a mafia boss." Lena's voice rose. "That's what you want him to know? That I'm not just Lena Martinez who works at a bookstore and volunteers at the shelter, but Lena Rinaldi whose husband can make people disappear? I would never." "I know you won't kill him." Lena moved closer, searching his face. "But you'll hurt him in other ways. Financial ways. Ways that ruin him slowly. And then what? He tells people who you are? What you are. And suddenly everyone knows, and I can't go to the grocery store without someone looking at me differently." Dante reached for her hand, and this time she let him take it. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a gesture so familiar, so gentle, it made her want to cry. "I stayed away from that world for you," he said quietly. "I walked away from the family business, from the power, from everything I knew. I did it because you asked me to, and because I wanted a life with you more than I wanted any of that. I know. But I can't be the man who does nothing when you're hurt. I can't, Lena. I've tried. I spent all last night trying to talk myself down, to be reasonable, to let the law handle it." His voice cracked. "But I watched that video, and I saw you try to apologize to a man who was about to hit you. I saw you make yourself smaller for someone who saw you as nothing. And something in me broke." Lena squeezed his hand. "I don't want a war fought in my name. It's not a war. It's a conversation. I'm just making sure Adrian Voss hears me clearly. And after he hears you, then what? We go back to normal?" Pretend this didn't happen? Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw with something she rarely heard from him. Fear. I don't know if we can go back. That's the truth. I activated networks. I swore I'd never touch again. I made calls to people who will now expect things from me. The families are watching, waiting to see if I'm back. He met her eyes. I did that for you. I'd do it again. But I won't lie and say there's no cost. Lena felt tears burning. I never wanted this. I know, baby. I know. He pulled her close, and she let herself lean into his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady against her cheek. But we can't undo it. All we can do is decide how it ends. How does it end? With him understanding what he did. With him making it right somehow. And then, Dante's arms tightened around her. Then I try to go back to being just Dante again. The man who sells olive oil and reads in bed with his wife and doesn't make the city hold its breath. Can you do that? I have to. Because losing you would destroy me worse than losing any empire. They stood there in the morning light, holding each other like survivors of a storm that wasn't over yet. Below them, the city moved on, unaware that in this quiet apartment, a woman was trying to hold back a tide of violence with nothing but love and hope. Lena pulled back to look at him. Promise me something. Anything. Whatever you do to him, whatever consequences he faces, let it be about justice, not revenge. Let it be about making sure no one else gets slapped for spilling wine. Not about satisfying old instincts. Dante studied her face, and she saw the war in his eyes. The man he was versus the man he'd been. Finally, he nodded. I promise. But Lena? Yeah. He doesn't get to walk away like nothing happened. Some things demand answers. I know, she kissed him softly. Just don't lose yourself getting them. Dante didn't respond, and in that silence, Lena heard everything he couldn't say. The cost of loving her might be higher than either of them wanted to pay. Adrian arrived at the City Commerce Board meeting 40 minutes early, desperate to salvage something from the wreckage of his week. 3 days had passed since the gala, and his world had continued its systematic collapse. The meeting room in City Hall was elegant. Mahogany table, leather chairs, oil paintings of founding fathers watching with stern disapproval. Adrian took his seat at the head, spreading out proposals and financial projections. The waterfront development project was his chance to prove he was still a player, still someone worth backing. $50 million in public-private partnership funding. His technology securing a smart grid for the entire harbor district. It was supposed to be announced next week. He checked his watch. The board members should be arriving soon. His phone buzzed. Jennifer, his assistant. Sir, we have a problem. Adrian closed his eyes. Those 4 words had become his daily greeting. What now? 3 board members just canceled. Henderson, Liu, and Castellano. All within the last 15 minutes. Did they give reasons? Henderson said his wife was sick. Liu claimed a family emergency. Castellano's assistant just said he couldn't make it. Adrian's grip tightened on the phone. That's half the voting members. I know. Should I reschedule?
No.
We proceed. Get whoever's coming here now. 20 minutes later, only 4 of the 8 board members had shown up. They sat scattered around the table, none of them meeting Adrian's eyes. The tension was suffocating. Gentlemen, Adrian began, forcing confidence into his voice. Thank you for coming. I know it's been a challenging week. That's an understatement, muttered James Wheeler, a real estate developer who'd worked with Adrian for years. But the harbor project remains solid. My technology is cutting edge, the financial projections are conservative, and the city needs this infrastructure upgrade. Adrian clicked through his presentation. We're talking about transforming the waterfront into a model of urban efficiency. Silence. Finally, Martin Cross, the oldest member, spoke. Adrian, we need to address the elephant in the room. The video is being handled by my PR team. I'm not talking about the video. Martin's voice was grave. I'm talking about your business collapsing in real time. Your stock is down 18%. Two of your major contracts were canceled. And I've heard rumors. Rumors aren't facts. That your banking relationships are under investigation, Martin continued as if Adrian hadn't spoken. That customs has flagged multiple shipments. That investors are fleeing like the building's on fire. Adrian felt sweat forming on his collar. Those are temporary setbacks. The bank situation is a misunderstanding. Is it? James Wheeler leaned forward. Because my bank received a very interesting inquiry about you. Federal regulators asking about your transaction patterns. Completely routine, they said, but the timing seems convenient. Adrian's stomach dropped.
Who told you that?
My banker, who's been my friend for 20 years, James's expression was unreadable. He also mentioned that someone very influential had questions about your business practices. Someone who makes bankers nervous. Someone. Adrian tried to laugh. That's vague conspiracy nonsense. Vague or not, it's affecting confidence. Martin gathered his papers. Adrian, this board can't be associated with controversy. The harbor project involves public money, city contracts, political capital. If you're radioactive. I'm not radioactive. I had one bad moment at a party. One moment. That's gone viral to 9 million views, another board member added quietly. My daughter showed it to me. She's organizing a protest outside your headquarters. She's 15-inch. The room felt like it was closing in. Look, Adrian said, trying to regain control. Whatever pressure you're feeling, whatever whispers you've heard, they're designed to make you panic. Someone is trying to destroy me because of that video. But I won't be bullied. And neither should you. Martin stood slowly. Adrian, I've done business in the city for 40 years. I know when to hold my ground and when to recognize a losing position. This isn't about bullying. This is about survival. Martin, I'm recommending the board postpone the harbor project indefinitely, pending resolution of your current difficulties. You can't do that. We have agreements. We have preliminary agreements, subject to board approval, which I'm voting against. Martin headed for the door. I suggest you figure out who you've angered and make it right. Before there's nothing left to save. The other board members filed out behind him, leaving Adrian alone in the cavernous room. His phone rang. Unknown number. Again. He'd been getting them all week, calls that went silent when he answered, texts with no sender, messages that made his security team suggest he change his phone. This time, he answered. Who is this? Mr. Voss. The voice was male, calm, with a faint Italian accent. You don't know me, but I think it's time we talked. I'm done with games. Either identify yourself or... My name is Marco Salvetti. I work for someone who has taken an interest in your situation. Adrian's mouth went dry. What situation? The one where you put your hands on the wrong person. A pause. You've been wondering who's behind your troubles. You've been asking questions, making calls, trying to understand why everything is falling apart. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining to you. There's a difference. Marco's tone remained pleasant, almost friendly. The woman you struck at the Skyfall Grand Hotel. Did you even learn her name? Adrian's mind raced. His investigators had found nothing useful. Lena Martinez worked part-time at a bookstore, volunteered at a shelter, no criminal record, no obvious connections. A nobody. I know who she is, Adrian lied. No, you don't. You know her public face. But you don't know her private one. Marco, let that hang. Her husband is a very private man. He doesn't like attention. He's spent 2 years being invisible, building a quiet life. And then you came along. Her husband did this? Adrian's voice rose. Some nobody Maid is married to someone who can freeze bank accounts and manipulate customs? That's insane. Is it?
Marco sounded amused.
Think about the precision, Mr. Voss. Every move calculated. Every pressure point identified. This isn't chaos, it's architecture. And the architect wants you to understand something. What? That you're still standing because he allows it. That your business still exists because he's chosen mercy over alternatives. But his patience has limits. Adrian's heart hammered. What does he want? That's a conversation for another time. Right now, I'm simply making an introduction, helping you understand the shape of your new reality. Marco's voice hardened slightly. You hurt someone he loves. In his world, that has consequences. The only question is how severe those consequences become. This is extortion. This is education. Learn from it. The line went dead. Adrian sat alone in the empty boardroom, staring at his phone. His hands were shaking. A maid. A random woman in an apron whom he'd slapped without thinking twice. She was married to someone powerful enough to dismantle his empire with phone calls. The question that terrified him most wasn't who her husband was. It was what he wanted, and whether Adrian could survive giving it to him. The old opera house stood on the edge of the historic district, a relic from an era when the city's elite gathered for culture instead of charity tax write-offs. Lady Rosamund Ashford Price owned it now, hosting private events for people who value discretion above all else. Dante arrived at 10 p.m. alone. Marco had offered to come, but this conversation required a different touch. Lady Rosamund responded to manners, not muscle. The stage door was unlocked as promised. Dante walked through the darkened backstage area, past costumes from forgotten productions, until he reached the private viewing box. Lady Rosamund sat in a velvet chair, a glass of sherry in her hand, watching the empty stage below. Mr. Rinaldi, she said without turning. It's been quite some time. 3 years. Dante took the chair beside her. The night you needed help with that real estate developer who thought your building was for sale. Ah, yes. Mr. Chen suddenly decided to pursue opportunities in Seattle, a slight smile. How convenient for everyone. They sat in companionable silence. Dante had learned patience from his father. Never rush someone who holds information you need. Let them arrive at cooperation on their own terms. I assume this visit concerns the unfortunate incident at my gala, Lady Rosamund finally said. It does. I've been expecting you. Or someone like you. She sipped her sherry. The woman was your wife. It wasn't a question, but Dante answered anyway. Yes. I didn't know. She uses a different name for work. Martinez, I believe. Lady Rosamund turned to look at him directly. At 72, she still commanded presence. Steel gray hair perfectly coiffed, diamonds at her throat catching the dim light. Had I known Lena Martinez was Lena Rinaldi, I would have ensured she worked nowhere near the guests. She shouldn't have to hide who she is to be safe. Perhaps not. But we live in reality, not ideals. She set down her glass. Adrian Voss is a bore. I invited him solely because his donation was substantial. He's been banned from future events. That's not enough. I suspected as much. Lady Rosamund stood, moving to a Louis XVI desk in the corner. She opened a drawer and removed a manila folder. The guest list as you requested. Complete contact information for everyone in attendance. I've also included my security footage, 3 different angles of the incident, and the 30 minutes preceding it. Dante took the folder, but didn't open it. And the staff. I've already spoken to them. Anyone who wishes to press charges has my full support. I've also terminated my contract with Elite Events Management for insufficient training and supervision. She returned to her chair. 3 other women have come forward with complaints about how guests treated them that evening. I'm ashamed it took a viral video for me to pay attention. Why are you helping me? Lady Rosamund's expression hardened. Because I've spent 50 years in this city watching rich men behave as if consequence is for other people. I've watched them abuse staff, mistresses, wives, anyone they perceive as powerless. And I've said nothing because that was the game we played. She met his eyes. I'm tired of that game, Mr. Rinaldi. Perhaps you frightened me into action, or perhaps that video disgusted me enough to find my spine. Either way, Adrian Voss will not be protected by my silence. Dante studied her, looking for deception. He found none. You know what I'm going to do with this information. I have suspicions. Though I prefer not to know details, she picked up her sherry again. I will say this. Adrian is not well liked among the elite. He's new money, crude, thinks wealth equals refinement. You won't find many defenders if his empire continues to crumble. Good to know. However, she continued, the families are watching. Your reappearance has not gone unnoticed. There are whispers that Dante Rinaldi has returned to the game. I haven't. Haven't you? Lady Rosamund's smile was knowing. You've activated networks dormant for 2 years. You've demonstrated reach that extends into banking, customs, city government. Men with power are suddenly afraid. That sounds very much like the game to me. Dante stood, folder in hand. This is personal. When it's resolved, I'm done. Personal matters often have public consequences. Be careful, Mr. Rinaldi. The city has enjoyed peace during your retirement. If you staying active means a return to the old ways, she trailed off meaningfully. It won't. I have no interest in territory or tribute or any of it. I just need Adrian Voss to understand what he did. And then I go back to selling olive oil. Lady Rosamund laughed, genuine and surprised. You almost sound like you believe that. Dante moved toward the door, then paused. The catering staff that night. Make sure they're compensated.
Lena would want that.
Already done. Double pay for emotional distress. With a formal apology from my office, Lady Rosamund stood as well. Your wife has become something of a folk hero, you know. Social media is calling her the face of service worker dignity. There's a fundraiser to help her with legal fees, though I suspect she won't need them. She won't accept charity. I thought as much. A woman of principle, Lady Rosamund walked Dante to the door. Give her my regards. And tell her that if she ever needs employment, she has a standing offer here. Proper employment, in management, away from guests who lack basic human decency. I'll tell her. She won't take it, but I'll tell her. As Dante reached the exit, Lady Rosamund called out one more time. Mr. Rinaldi? That video has 13 million views now. The world is watching what happens next. Whatever you do, make sure it's something your wife can live with. Dante nodded and disappeared into the night. Outside, Marco waited in the car, engine idling. She cooperated? Marco asked as Dante slid into the passenger seat. Completely. Guest list, security footage, everything. Dante opened the folder, scanning names. Politicians, business leaders, old money, new money, the entire power structure of the city had watched his wife get slapped and done nothing. What now? Now we let them know they were complicit. Each one of them. Dante's finger stopped on a name. Starting with the mayor. He was standing 6 feet away when it happened. I saw him in the footage, saw him look away. He canceled the Smart City partnership with Voss. Because we made him nervous, not because it was right. Dante closed the folder. I want a meeting. Friendly. Just a conversation about civic responsibility and moral courage.
Marcos Maid.
He's not going to like that. He doesn't have to like it. He just has to listen. Dante looked out at the opera house, its elegant facade hiding so many secrets. Lady Rosamund was right about one thing. The city is watching. We need to make sure they see the right message. Which is that silence in the face of cruelty is its own form of violence. And that kind of violence has consequences too. Marco pulled into traffic, heading back toward their part of town. Behind them, the opera house faded into darkness, another stage where power played its eternal games. But Dante wasn't playing anymore. He was teaching. And the lesson had just begun. The Riverside Community Shelter sat in the old industrial district, a converted warehouse where Lena volunteered 3 mornings a week. She sorted donations in the back room, losing herself in the simple rhythm of folding clothes and organizing canned goods. Here, nobody knew about the video. Nobody whispered behind their hands. Or so she thought. Lena? Maria, her supervisor, poked her head into the storage room. There's someone here to see you.
Who?
Maria's expression was strange, half concerned, half afraid. Adrian Voss. The box of canned vegetables slipped from Lena's hands, crashing to the floor. Cans rolled across the concrete like scattered thoughts.
What?
Here. He showed up 5 minutes ago. Asked for you by name. I told him you were busy, but he said he'd wait. Maria moved closer, lowering her voice. Lena, what's going on? Why would Adrian Voss come to a homeless shelter looking for you? Because his world is ending and he's desperate, Lena thought. Because Dante is squeezing him and he thinks I can make it stop. I'll handle it, Lena said, standing. You don't have to talk to him. I can call the police. No police, Lena smoothed her shirt. It's fine. Give me 5 minutes. Adrian waited in the shelter's common area, looking absurdly out of place among the worn furniture and scuffed linoleum. He wore a suit that probably cost $5,000. His face was drawn, circles under his eyes suggesting he'd slept as poorly as Lena had this week. When he saw her, something like relief crossed his features. Lena, he said, standing quickly. Thank you for seeing me. I didn't exactly have a choice. This is where I work.
Right.
Of course, he glanced around nervously. Several shelter residents watched with undisguised hostility. The video had made him infamous here too. Could we speak privately? Lena led him to a small office, leaving the door open. She didn't sit, didn't offer him a chair. Just crossed her arms and waited. Adrian cleared his throat. I wanted to apologize. For what happened at the gala.
For hitting you.
It was wrong. Completely inexcusable. The words sounded rehearsed. Probably were. Okay, Lena said. Okay. He blinked. That's it. What do you want me to say? Youth apologized. I heard it. I want you to understand that I'm not usually like that. I was stressed, I'd had too much to drink, and when you spilled wine on my suit, he caught himself. Not that it's an excuse. I'm just saying, it was out of character. Lena studied him. He looked smaller than she remembered, less imposing. Fear had stripped away his arrogance, revealing something almost pathetic underneath. Was it out of character? She asked quietly. Because I've been reading about you this week. The lawsuits. The settlements. The employees who say you created a hostile work environment. This wasn't the first time you've hurt someone. It's just the first time you got caught on camera. Adrian flinched. Those situations were different. They really weren't. Lena felt anger rising, hot and righteous. You think people are disposable. You think wealth gives you the right to treat service workers like objects. You slapped me because, in that moment, I was just an obstacle. Something in your way. That's not fair. You grabbed my wrist hard enough to bruise it. Lena held up her arm, showing the fading marks. You humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. You made me feel like nothing. And now you're here because your business is falling apart, and you think a clumsy apology will fix it. Adrian's composure cracked. I need you to call him off. There it was. The real reason. Call who off? Don't play games. Your husband. Dante Rinaldi. Adrian's voice rose. I know who he is. What he is. He's destroying everything I've built. My accounts are frozen. My investors are gone. The city won't work with me. Maybe you deserve it. Deserve it? I slapped you. I didn't kill anyone. This response is insane. Is it? Lena moved closer, her own voice hardening. You put your hands on me and walked away like it meant nothing. You went back to your party, drank more champagne, probably forgot about me before the night ended. Meanwhile, I went home terrified and humiliated. But sure, tell me more about how you're the victim here. Adrian's face reddened. I came here to apologize. You came here to save yourself. There's a difference.
Fine.
Yes. I'm trying to save my company. I've spent 12 years building vast security systems. I have 300 employees who depend on me. Is your hurt pride worth all of them losing their jobs? Lena felt the hit land, but she didn't let it show. My hurt pride? That's what you think this is about. What else could it be? I made a mistake at a party, and now your husband is burning down my life. How is that justice? How is that fair? Before Lena could answer, a black sedan pulled up outside. Through the window, she saw Marco step out, his presence immediate and undeniable. Adrian saw him too. His face went pale. Is that? You should go, Lena said. Not until you promise to talk to your husband. Tell him I apologized. Tell him I'll do whatever he wants. Just make it stop. Marco entered the shelter, his eyes finding Adrian immediately. He didn't approach, just stood near the door. Waiting. Mr. Voss, Marco said politely. Mrs. Rinaldi's time is valuable. I think this conversation is over. We're not done. We are, Marco's voice remained pleasant, but the threat underneath was unmistakable. And I'd suggest you keep your distance from Mrs. Rinaldi going forward. For your own sake. Adrian turned to Lena, desperation clear in his eyes.
Please. I'm sorry.
I mean it. Just tell me what I have to do. Lena felt something unexpected, not satisfaction, not even anger. Just tired sadness. I can't control what my husband does, she said quietly. Just like you couldn't control yourself that night. Actions have consequences, Mr. Voss. Maybe it's time you learned that. Adrian opened his mouth, closed it, then walked toward the exit. At the door, he turned back one more time. The woman who spilled wine, he said. That could have been anyone. I want you to know, I don't even remember what you look like from that night. You were just
there.
And that's the point, isn't it? I didn't see you as a person. No, Lena agreed. You didn't. I see you now, his voice cracked. For what it's worth.
He left.
Marco lingered, his expression apologetic. Mr. Rinaldi didn't send me to intimidate him, Marco said. I was just making sure you were safe. I know, Lena sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. Marco, how does this end? That's up to your husband. And maybe up to Mr. Voss. What does Dante want from him? Marco was quiet for a moment. Understanding. Accountability. Assurance it never happens again to anyone. He moved toward the door. But between you and me, I think what he really wants is impossible. What's that? To undo the moment you got hurt. Since he can't have that, he'll settle for making sure Adrian Voss never forgets it. After Marco left, Lena sat alone in the office, listening to the shelter's familiar sounds. She thought about Adrian's face, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd finally seen her as human. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt heavy. Over the next 48 hours, Adrian watched his empire continue its systematic dismantling. Wednesday morning, his lead software engineer quit via email, accepting a position with a competitor at twice the salary. By noon, 3 more engineers had followed. His HR director reported whispers of a coordinated recruitment effort. Someone was actively poaching his talent. Wednesday afternoon, the lease on his flagship office space in the financial district came up for emergency review. The building's owner, a man Adrian had met twice at networking events, suddenly needed to reassess long-term tenancy compatibility. The legal language was vague, but the message was clear: leave or be forced out. Thursday brought worse news. A journalist from the Tribune called, asking pointed questions about the sealed sexual harassment lawsuit from 4 years ago. How had she gotten those details? Sealed meant buried, forgotten, protected by NDAs and legal walls. Someone leaked it, his lawyer Patricia said over the phone. This level of detail could only come from internal files or court records that should be inaccessible. Can we kill the story? We can try. But Adrian, 3 more women contacted the reporter yesterday. Former employees. They're willing to go on record about your behavior. The dam is breaking. By Thursday evening, his stock had dropped 26%. The board called an emergency meeting to discuss his future with the company he'd founded. Adrian sat alone in his penthouse apartment, drinking scotch and watching the city lights. Somewhere out there, Dante Rinaldi was orchestrating his destruction with surgical precision. No violence, no obvious crimes, just influence applied to 1,000 pressure points until the structure collapsed. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. What now? Adrian answered. Mr. Voss, this is Detective Sarah Chen with the Financial Crimes Unit. The voice was professional, bored even. We're opening an investigation into your business practices. Specifically, irregularities in your overseas accounts and potential tax evasion. You'll need to come in for questioning. Adrian's hand tightened on the glass. This is harassment. This is due diligence. We received credible information suggesting. From who? Dante Rinaldi. Silence on the line. I'm not familiar with that name, sir. Can you come in tomorrow at 9 a.m.? Or should we send officers to collect you? After she hung up, Adrian hurled his glass across the room. It shattered against the window, scotch running down the glass like tears. Across the city, the ripple effects were being felt everywhere. At Metropolitan Bank, senior management held closed-door meetings about their Adrian Voss exposure. Someone, nobody would say who, had suggested that continuing to bank Voss might affect their other high-value relationships. 3 major depositors had quietly inquired about the bank's association with controversial clients. The mayor's office fielded hundreds of calls demanding to know why he'd been photographed at the gala, standing nearby when the assault occurred, doing nothing. His chief of staff drafted 3 different statements before giving up. There was no good answer. At the Skyfall Grand Hotel, the general manager fired the events coordinator who'd hired elite events management. The viral video had been watched 20 million times. Hashtag boycott Skyfall was trending. Reservations were down 18%. Elite events management lost 4 major contracts in 2 days. Their CEO issued a public statement condemning Adrian's behavior and announcing new staff protection protocols, but the damage was done. Meanwhile, Lena became an accidental icon. A GoFundMe created by strangers to support the Skyfall Maid reached $200,000 before Lena even knew it existed. Labor rights organizations invited her to speak at rallies. A lawyer offered pro bono representation if she wanted to sue Adrian or the hotel. Maria showed her the headlines during their shift at the shelter. The woman who stood up to power, Maria read from her phone. How one maid's humiliation became a movement for service worker rights. I didn't do anything, Lena protested. I got slapped and ran away crying.
You survived.
You're still here. And somehow, your story made people pay attention. Maria scrolled through more articles. There's a petition to create citywide protections for service workers. Over 50,000 signatures. They're calling it Lena's Law. Lena felt sick. I don't want a law named after me. Maybe not. But those 50,000 people want change. They're tired of watching wealthy people abuse workers without consequences. Maria set down her phone. You didn't ask for this, but it's happening anyway. The question is what you do with it. That evening, Lena sat with Dante in their apartment, watching the news coverage in silence. A labor organizer was being interviewed, holding up a photo of Lena's bruised wrist. She represents every worker who's been degraded, every person who's been made to feel small by someone with power, the organizer said. Her story is everyone's story. Turn it off, Lena said quietly. Dante clicked off the TV. You okay? I'm a symbol. A movement. A hashtag. Lena laughed bitterly. 3 weeks ago, I was nobody. I liked being nobody. I could walk down the street without strangers recognizing me. Now I can't go to the grocery store without someone wanting to take a selfie or tell me their own story about being mistreated. You could embrace it. Use the platform for good. I don't want a platform. I want my life back, she turned to him. And I want you to stop. Whatever you're doing to Adrian, stop. Dante's expression didn't change. Why? Because this has gotten too big. It's not about justice anymore. It's about revenge. You're destroying him piece by piece. And for what? He apologized. He's suffering. When is it enough? When I'm sure he'll never touch you or anyone else again. You can't guarantee that. You can't control human nature. Lena stood, pacing. I've been reading about him too, you know. His company employs 300 people. If Voss Security Systems collapses, they lose their jobs. They have families, mortgages, kids in college. Are they collateral damage in your war? He should have thought about that before. Before what? Before being human? Before making a mistake? Lena's voice rose. Yes, he was wrong. Yes, he hurt me. But this scorched earth approach, it's not who you are anymore. Or, at least, it's not who you told me you wanted to be. Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, controlled. You asked me once what I feared most. Remember? Yes. I said losing you. But that's not the whole truth. He met her eyes. What I really fear is being powerless to protect you. That's what the video showed me. A moment when I wasn't there, couldn't help, couldn't stop what was happening. And the only thing worse than that feeling is doing nothing about it. So, you're doing this for yourself, Lena said softly. Not for me. The words landed like a slap of their own. Dante flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? I asked you to stop. I told you I don't want a war fought in my name. But you're still going, because it makes you feel better. Because it lets you be the man who fixes things, who controls situations, who never lets anyone hurt what's his. You're not a possession. Then stop treating this like property damage that needs avenging. Lena's voice cracked. I'm asking you, as your wife, as the person you claim to love more than anything, let it go. Let him go. Before you become the man you spent 2 years trying not to be. Dante stood motionless, the words settling between them like a chasm. Finally, he nodded. Okay. I'll end it. Tomorrow. I'll call off the pressure, tell people to back off, let Adrian Voss crawl out of the hole I put him in. Dante moved closer. But on one condition. What?
He makes it right.
Not with me. With you. With every worker he's ever abused. With the city that watched and did nothing. He doesn't get to just walk away. He pays forward the lesson. Lena considered this. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. How? I have an idea, Dante said. But you're not going to like it. Lena couldn't sleep. Again. She lay in bed listening to Dante's steady breathing beside her, wondering how he could rest so peacefully when everything was spiraling. Outside, the city hummed with its usual nighttime rhythm, but inside her head, chaos reigned. At 2 a.m., she gave up. She slipped out of bed and went to the living room, curling up on the window seat that overlooked the street. The bookstore below was dark, closed hours ago. A few late-night stragglers walked past, heading home from bars or night shifts. Normal people, living normal lives. She'd wanted that so badly. For 4 years, she'd built a quiet existence with Dante, the man who sold olive oil, not the man who made cities tremble. They'd had dinners with Maria and her husband. Weekend trips to the coast. Boring, beautiful normalcy. One slap had destroyed all of it. Can't sleep? Dante's voice came from the doorway. Lena didn't turn around. When did you decide? Decide what? When you saw that video, when did you decide to go back? Was it immediate, or did you fight it? She heard him move closer, felt him sit beside her on the window seat. He was quiet for a long time. I fought it for about 30 seconds, he finally said. Then I made the first call. To Marco? To Tommy Chun. The information broker. Dante's voice was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. I needed to know everything about Adrian Voss within an hour. After that, it was like muscle memory. Call the banker, call the customs official, call everyone who owed me favors or feared me enough to listen. It took 20 minutes to set the machinery in motion. 20 minutes to destroy a man's life. 20 minutes to make sure he understood consequences. Lena finally looked at him. In the dim light from the street, his face was half shadow, the man she loved and the man she feared existing simultaneously. Do you regret retiring? She asked. The question seemed to surprise him.
No.
These 2 years with you, they've been the best of my life. But I was pretending. The admission came out raw. I thought I could just walk away from who I was, what I knew how to do. I thought love and imported olives would be enough. And they were, until they weren't. When I got hurt. When you got hurt, he confirmed. And I realized that all that power I'd set aside, it was still there. Dormant but not gone. Like a language you don't speak for years, but suddenly remember when you need it. Lena pulled her knees to her chest. I need you to be honest with me about something. Always. These past 2 years, were you happy? Or were you just waiting? Dante turned to face her fully. I was happy. That's the truth. Every morning waking up next to you, every dinner we cooked together, every stupid argument about which movie to watch, I was happy. Happier than I'd ever been. Then why does it feel like you slipped back so easily? Because the skills don't disappear, Lena. The instincts don't fade. He took her hand. When I saw that video, my first thought wasn't I should call the police or I should hire a lawyer. It was, I know exactly how to hurt him, and I know exactly who to call to make it happen. That's who I am. That's what 30 years in this life teaches you. I don't want you to be that person. I know. And I've tried not to be. But here's what I realized this week. He paused, choosing words carefully. I can't erase my past. I can't unknow what I know or undo the connections I've made. The best I can do is choose when and why to use them. And you chose to use them for revenge. I chose to use them to protect you. There's a difference. Is there? Lena's voice rose. Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like the same game you played before. Territory, power, making examples of people who cross you. It's not the same, isn't it? You're using fear. You're manipulating systems. You're making people suffer because it sends a message. She pulled her hand away. The only difference is the justification. Before it was business. Now it's love. But the methods are identical. Dante looked like she'd struck him. That's not fair. Neither was that slap. Neither was watching you disappear back into the darkness after promising me you were done with it. Lena stood, agitation propelling her to pace. Do you know what scared me most about that video? Not the slap itself. Not the humiliation. It was knowing that once you saw it, everything would change. That the man I married would remember who he used to be, and I'd lose him to that life again. You're not losing me, aren't I? You spent half the night on the phone with Marco. You met with Lady Rosamund at an opera house like something out of The Godfather. You've got men watching Adrian Voss, tracking his movements, reporting to you. She stopped, facing him. That's not a man who's retired. That's a man who's back in command. Dante stood too, the space between them suddenly feeling vast. What do you want me to do? I want you to let it go. Completely. Not just pull back the pressure, but actually step away. No more calls to bankers, no more favors called in, no more shadowy meetings. Just stop. I did stop. I told you yesterday I'd end it. You said you'd end it if Adrian made things right. That's not the same as stopping. That's just shifting to a different strategy. Lena's voice cracked. I don't want strategies. I don't want conditions or negotiations or plans. I want my husband back. The one who reads poetry to me in bed and argues with the bookstore cat and burns dinner trying to make carbonara. I'm still that person. Are you? Because right now, you look like Dante Rinaldi, the mafia boss everyone fears. Not Dante, the guy who cried during our wedding vows. The silence stretched between them, heavy with truths neither wanted to face. Finally, Dante spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't unknow that you were hurt. I can't unsee that video. And I can't pretend I don't have the power to do something about it. But should you? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. If I do nothing, if I let him walk away without consequences, what message does that send? That some people matter and others don't? That wealth and power mean you can abuse whoever you want? He moved closer. I stayed out of the life for 2 years because you asked. I walked away from everything I knew because I loved you more. But I won't apologize for protecting you. I won't. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to trust that the world has other mechanisms for justice besides you. Lena's eyes filled with tears. I'm asking you to have faith that Adrian facing public shame, losing investors, getting investigated, that maybe that's enough. That maybe the system, broken as it is, might actually work this time. And if it doesn't, then we live with it. Together. As people who don't control everything. Dante reached for her, and this time, she let him pull her close. She felt his heart beating against her cheek, fast and unsteady. I was so scared, he said into her hair.
When I saw that video,
I was terrified in a way I haven't been since I was a kid. Not for me, for you. That you'd been in danger, and I wasn't there. That you'd been hurt, and I couldn't stop it. I know. And doing nothing, letting it go unpunished, it feels like accepting that I can't protect you. That I'm powerless. And I don't know how to be powerless when it comes to you. Lena pulled back to look at him. That's what love is sometimes. Being powerless. Trusting the other person to survive without you fixing everything. I don't know if I can do that. Then learn. She cupped his face in her hands. Because if you can't, if you keep slipping back into this world every time something goes wrong, we don't have a future. I won't be the excuse you use to justify becoming the man you promised me you'd stop being. The words hung between them like an ultimatum, because that's what they were. Dante closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they were wet. Okay. Okay. I'll stop. Completely. No conditions, no demands that Adrian do anything. I'll make the calls tomorrow, tell everyone to back off, let whatever happens happen without my interference. His voice shook. But Lena, you have to understand, this might be the hardest thing you've ever asked me to do. I know, but I'm asking anyway. They stood together in the early morning darkness, holding each other like survivors of a storm that wasn't quite over. Outside, the city began to wake, and somewhere in it, Adrian Voss slept fitfully, unaware that his reprieve was coming. Not through victory, but through love. The kind of love that demands we become better than our instincts tell us to be. Adrian received the message at 7 a.m. Coordinates to a waterfront warehouse, a time, 8 p.m., and a single instruction: come alone. He knew better than to ignore it. All day, he tried to work, but his hands shook too badly to type. He called his lawyer, his security consultant, even considered calling the police. But what would he say? That a ghost was summoning him to a warehouse? That a man who didn't officially exist wanted a meeting? By evening, Adrian stood outside the address, watching the sunset paint the harbor in shades of blood orange. The warehouse was old, probably abandoned. Broken windows, rusted corrugated metal, the smell of salt and decay. He checked his phone one last time. Still had signal. He'd texted his lawyer the address with instructions to call the police if he didn't check in by 10. It wouldn't matter. If Dante Rinaldi wanted him dead, lawyers and cops couldn't save him. Adrian walked inside. The warehouse was empty except for a single light hanging from the ceiling, illuminating a cleared space in the center. 2 chairs faced each other. In one sat a man Adrian had never seen but immediately recognized, not from photographs, because there weren't any recent ones, but from the way he carried himself. Absolute certainty. Complete control. Dante Rinaldi was younger than Adrian expected, maybe 40. Dark hair graying at the temples, wearing a simple black shirt and jeans. He could have been anyone: a teacher, an accountant, a bookstore owner. But his eyes told a different story. Old eyes. Tired eyes. Dangerous eyes. Sit, Dante said. Not a request. Adrian sat, hating how his legs trembled. You're probably wondering if I'm going to hurt you, Dante continued, his voice conversational. The thought crossed my mind. I'm not. Dante leaned back in his chair. Violence is easy. It's also temporary. Pain fades. Bruises heal. I need you to understand something that lasts. I already understand. I'm sorry for what I did. You went to the shelter. Apologized to my wife. Very performative. Dante's tone didn't change, but something hardened in his expression. You told her you don't remember what she looks like from that night. That she was just there. Adrian's throat went dry. I was trying to be honest. You were trying to minimize. Make it about your blindness instead of your cruelty. Dante pulled out a tablet, tapping the screen. Let me tell you what I've learned about you, Adrian. You've been sued 7 times for workplace harassment. 3 settled for sealed. You've fired 23 employees over the past 5 years, 15 of them women, all after they complained about your behavior. That's not. Those were performance issues. You screamed at your assistant until she cried because she ordered the wrong lunch. You threw a laptop at an intern for being late to a meeting. You once told your head of HR that if she couldn't handle pressure, she should go work at a daycare. Dante set down the tablet. Want me to continue? Adrian said nothing. Here's what I want you to understand, Dante said. The woman you slapped? She volunteers at a homeless shelter. She works at a bookstore and gives half her paycheck to her mother. She cries during sad movies and leaves food out for stray cats. She's kind in a way that people like you can't comprehend. I know I hurt her. No, you don't. You know you slapped her. But you don't understand what you took, Dante's voice dropped. That night, 300 people watched you assault my wife. And not one of them stopped you. Not the mayor standing 6 feet away. Not Lady Rosamund, who hosted the event. Not the 50 other tech billionaires who probably wished they could do the same to their own staff. So this is about all of them too. This is about a system that protects men like you and discards women like her. A system where the powerful face no consequences and the powerless just endure. Dante stood, pacing. I could kill you. Easily. Or I could finish destroying your company, your reputation, everything you've built. Part of me wants to. Adrian's heart hammered. Then why haven't you? Because my wife asked me not to. Because she's a better person than I am. Because she believes in redemption, even when I don't. Dante stopped directly in front of Adrian. So here's what's going to happen instead. He pulled out a folder, dropping it on Adrian's lap. What is this? A proposal. You're going to fund a citywide protection program for service workers. Training on their rights, legal support if they're abused, financial assistance if they're fired for speaking up. It'll cost you $10 million over 5 years. Adrian's hands shook as he opened the folder. The proposal was detailed, professional, already drafted with legal precision. 10 million. Is less than you spent on your yacht. Dante's voice was iron. You'll also issue a public statement taking responsibility for your behavior. Not just the slap, all of it. The hostile work environment, the settled lawsuits, everything. You'll commit to mandatory therapy and leadership training. And you'll step down as CEO of Voss Security Systems. Step down? That's my company. That you'll remain a shareholder of. You'll still be rich, Adrian. You just won't be in charge of people you've proven you can't treat with basic respect. Dante moved back to his chair. The board's already been contacted. They're prepared to make the transition. Adrian felt his world tilt. You're taking everything. I'm leaving you your life and your wealth. What I'm taking is your power over others. There's a difference. And if I refuse? Dante's smile was cold. Then I stop being merciful. The criminal investigation into your finances continues. The sealed lawsuits get unsealed. Every woman you've harassed gets a call from a very good lawyer offering pro bono representation. Your company doesn't just lose you, it collapses entirely. 300 people lose their jobs, and it's on you. Adrian stared at the folder. $10 million. Public humiliation. Losing his CEO position. But he'd still be alive, still be wealthy, still have options. Why are you doing this? He asked. The protection program, the public accountability. Why do you care? Because my wife does. She doesn't want revenge. She wants to make sure what happened to her doesn't happen to anyone else. She wants systemic change, not just personal satisfaction. Dante's expression softened slightly. I'm a bad man who loves a good woman. This is me trying to be worthy of that love. Adrian looked up. You really love her. More than anything in this world. Which is why you're still breathing. Dante leaned forward. Let me be very clear, Adrian. You're alive because Lena asked me to let you live. The program exists because she wants to help others. But the fear you feel right now, the understanding that your life could end with a word from me, that's mine. That's the part one need you to remember. I'll remember. Good. Dante stood, heading for the door. You have 48 hours to sign the paperwork and draft your statement. Marco will be your point of contact. And Adrian? Yeah. If you ever come near my wife again, if you even breathe in her direction, mercy ends. I don't care what she asks. I don't care about redemption or second chances. You'll just disappear. Understood? Adrian nodded, not trusting his voice. After Dante left, Adrian sat alone in the warehouse, staring at the folder in his lap. The light swung slightly overhead, casting moving shadows. He thought about the maid, Lena, and how he'd dismissed her so completely that night. How he'd seen her as nothing. She was everything to someone, and that someone had just offered him a choice between destruction and redemption. Adrian opened the folder and began to read. Outside, Dante sat in his car, hands gripping the steering wheel. Marco waited in the driver's seat. You okay, boss? I almost killed him, Dante said quietly. In there, listening to him minimize what he did, watching him try to negotiate, I wanted to break his neck. But you didn't.
No.
Because I promised Lena. Dante released the wheel, flexing his fingers. Is this mercy or weakness, Marco? It's love, Marco said simply. Which is stronger than either. Dante pulled out his phone and called Lena. She answered immediately. Is it done? It's done.
He'll sign.
The program will be funded, and you'll never see him again. Did you hurt him? Only his pride. Relief flooded her voice. Thank you. For listening. For stopping. I did it for you. Only for you. Dante closed his eyes. But Lena? I need you to know, this doesn't mean I've changed. It just means I love you more than I love revenge. That's enough, she said softly. That's all I need. After they hung up, Marco started the car. Where to?
Home, Dante said.
I'm done playing ghost. As they drove away from the waterfront, Dante watched the warehouse disappear in the rearview mirror. He'd given Adrian Voss mercy. But the city would remember this moment differently. The moment Dante Rinaldi chose restraint over retribution. The moment a ghost proved he was still the most dangerous man in the city. Not because of what he did, but because of what he chose not to do. 3 weeks later, Lena stood at the podium in City Hall's community center, looking out at a crowd of 200 people. Service workers, union representatives, city councilors, and press filled every seat. Camera flashes made her blink. She'd never wanted this. The attention, the platform, the role of spokesperson. But Maria had been right. 50,000 people had signed a petition for change. They deserved someone to speak for them, even if that someone was terrified. My name is Lena Martinez, she began, her voice shaking slightly. And 3 weeks ago, I was slapped at a charity gala for spilling wine. The room was silent, attentive. What happened to me wasn't unique. Every day, service workers face abuse, harassment, and disrespect. We're invisible until we make a mistake, and then we're targets. We're expected to smile through insults, to apologize for existing in spaces where we're needed but not wanted. She paused, gathering courage. But something changed after that night. People started paying attention. They started asking why this happens and what we can do to stop it. Lena gestured to the banner behind her. The Worker Protection Initiative, funded by Adrian Voss and supported by the city, will provide legal aid, workplace advocacy, and support for anyone in the service industry who faces abuse or discrimination. In the back row, Adrian sat alone, looking smaller than she remembered. He'd issued his public statement 2 weeks ago, a raw, honest accounting of his behavior that had shocked the business community. He'd stepped down as CEO, entered therapy, and made the first of his 5 annual payments to the program. The city had watched it all with fascination. Some called it justice. Others called it extortion. But everyone agreed, something had shifted in the balance of power. This program exists because people demanded change, Lena continued. Because silence and tolerance of abuse are no longer acceptable. Because every worker deserves dignity, regardless of their position. She looked directly at Adrian. He met her eyes, then nodded slightly, acknowledgement, not forgiveness. That would take time if it came at all. I'm honored to serve as the director of this initiative. And I promise that every person who reaches out will be heard, supported, and protected. The applause was thunderous. After the press conference, Lena escaped to a quiet corridor. She leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Her hands were still trembling from the adrenaline. You did good. Dante appeared from a side door, keeping his distance. He'd stayed hidden during the event as promised. This was her moment, not his. I almost threw up halfway through. You looked confident. Strong. He moved closer. I'm proud of you. Lena studied him. He looked different lately, lighter somehow, like a burden had been lifted. The calls had stopped. Marco only came by to deliver business reports about the import company. The shadows that had followed them for weeks had retreated. Are you really done? She asked. Truly. I'm trying to be. Dante took her hand. The families have been disappointed. They thought my return was permanent. I've had to make it very clear that I'm retired. How clear? Let's just say I had some difficult conversations.
But they understand now.
Dante Rinaldi is out of the game. What happened with Adrian Voss was personal, not a return to business. He squeezed her hand. Though the city still remembers. That's the part one can't undo. Maybe that's not a bad thing. What do you mean? Lena pulled him toward the window, overlooking the city. You spent 2 years trying to be invisible. But maybe the answer isn't invisibility. It's choosing when and how to be visible. You used your influence for something good. You could do that again without going back to the old ways. You want me to be some kind of reformed vigilante. I want you to be yourself. The man who knows how to move systems, who understands power, who can make things happen. Just use it for the right reasons. She leaned against him. You can't unknow what you know, but you can choose what you do with it. Dante was quiet, processing. That's a very optimistic view. I'm an optimistic person. You married me knowing that. He laughed, the sound genuine and warm.
I did.
And I'd do it again. Across town in his modest apartment, he'd sold the penthouse. Adrian watched the press conference on his laptop. Lena's words echoed in his mind. Every worker deserves dignity, regardless of their position. He'd never thought about it before.
Dignity.
It had been a given for him, automatic and unquestioned. For others, it was something they had to fight for, defend, constantly prove they deserved. His therapist had asked him yesterday, "What do you want your legacy to be?" Adrian hadn't had an answer then. But watching Lena speak with such conviction, knowing his money was helping build something meaningful, maybe that was a start. He'd never be celebrated for what he'd done. The statement had cost him friendships, business relationships, respect in certain circles. But it had also freed him from the weight of pretending. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister in California, the first she'd sent in 6 years. I saw your statement. I'm proud of you for finally owning your shit. Maybe we can talk sometime. Adrian stared at the message, feeling something unexpected. Hope. That evening, Dante and Lena walked through their neighborhood, anonymous in the crowd. The bookstore was preparing for evening hours, the cafe across the street had its usual line, and the park was filled with people enjoying the autumn weather. Normal, Lena said, smiling. Normalish, Dante corrected. The whispers haven't completely stopped. Let them whisper. We know the truth. They reached their building and climbed the stairs to their apartment. Inside, everything was exactly as they'd left it. Books scattered on the coffee table, dishes in the sink, the cat they'd adopted last week sleeping on the couch. Home. I've been thinking, Dante said as they settled in for the evening, about what you said at City Hall. Using influence for good. Yeah. Marco mentioned that the Labor Rights Coalition is having trouble with a landlord who's illegally evicting low-income tenants. They've tried legal channels, but he has connections, keeps blocking them. Lena turned to look at him. And I might know someone who knows someone. No threats, no violence.
Just
making sure the right people understand that illegal evictions have consequences. That's using your old network.
For the right reasons, Dante said.
Like you suggested. Lena considered this. It was a slippery slope, she knew. Each right reason could lead to another, could blur the lines they'd worked so hard to draw. But doing nothing, watching people suffer when he had the power to help, that had its own cost. Okay, she said finally, but on one condition. What's that? We make decisions together. If you're going to use your influence, I'm part of the conversation. No more solitary midnight calls to Marco. Dante smiled. Deal. They shook on it, then Lena laughed at the formality. Dante pulled her close, and they stood together in their small apartment, looking out at the city that had watched their story unfold. Somewhere below, people were finishing dinner shifts, cleaning hotel rooms, parking cars for wealthy guests. They moved through the world largely unseen, doing the work that kept the city running. But things were changing. Slowly, imperfectly, but changing. Because one woman had been slapped, and her husband had reminded the city that actions have consequences. Because mercy could be more powerful than vengeance. Because love could demand both justice and restraint. The elites whispered that Dante had let Adrian Voss live only because Lena asked. They were right, but they missed the deeper truth. In that choice, Dante had proven something far more important than his power. He'd proven his humanity. And in the shadows of the city, his name regained its old weight, not as a tyrant, but as a man whose loyalty was absolute when it came to his wife. A man who could destroy you with a phone call, or save you with the same. A man who chose to be a ghost when it suited him, and a guardian when it mattered. The most dangerous kind of man, one who knew his own power and chose carefully when to use it. Dante Rinaldi had retired from the Mafia. But he would never retire from protecting the woman he loved, or the city she wanted to make better. And that, the city learned, was enough to keep everyone honest. The end.